Yo, what's up, what's up, what's up? Straight out of Africa, I am Y311H, and lots of love and respect to yourself, my brother and sister, wonderful soul, for clicking this video. Let me put you up to speed with what we shall be doing today, my friend, which basically is reacting to videos. The type of videos, my friend, that might blow your mind, crack your ribs, or make you or leave you rethinking reality. And all these videos, my friend, we shall be reacting to them with the pure intentions of spreading love, peace, honesty, and forgiveness to the whole world. But before we reach those videos, my friend, let's read from the Book of Wisdom, the Guide of Life. And today, this is what it says. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide passes for yourselves in heaven that will not be exhausted, where no thief comes near, and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Luke 12 from 32. My good friend, that is one common verse and is full of love and good vibes. Let's give thanks to our Creator before we get to see the videos. Mighty Father, King of Kings, Father, the maker of heaven and earth. Thank you for this day and thank you for this moment. Thank you for your breath in us. All glory and honor belong unto you, Father. This soul that has clicked, Father, this video, you know them individually. You know the desires and wants of their hearts, Father. Please grant them according to your will. Guide us these videos, forgive us our sins, Father, and help us to spread our message. Bless everything we have, Father, and be with us. In Jesus' mighty name, we do pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Peace and love be with you, my friend. Let's dive in. Good vibes all the way.
Does your dog have normal eyes, or does your dog have strangely human eyes that make you think he's trapped the soul of a human person inside of his body and you need to get him out or else something terrible will happen? Yeah, me neither.
Welcome back to the Lugao series, y'all boys. This that Lugao shit I be talking about. It's right here. Look. Man. Yes, I said man, because that's what this dog is. This is a man. This is a man. It's not a dog. It's not a dog. Y'all can't sit here and tell me you see this dog and you don't think about Will Ferrell. You don't think about Will Ferrell? Let's do a side by side. So this not the same person. Will Ferrell, I'm on to you. Always knew something fishy about you. Your Lugao self. Don't let me catch you in these streets, Will. Will, don't let me catch you in these streets. En tout cas.
Do you ever wonder where all those military ranks actually come from? Alright, starting from the bottom, private is a shortening of the term private soldier. This goes back to the late medieval or early Renaissance era where a private soldier was distinct from a higher ranking officer. As you know, commanding officers were almost always from the landed gentry or nobility and as such held a public office. A private had none of those public duties or expectations. He was just a regular everyday guy who signed up to do a job and get paid. Corporal comes from the Italian capo corporale, meaning leader of a body, as in a body or group of soldiers. Sergeant comes from the Latin serviens via the Old French sergeant, meaning servant. In a military context, it came to mean a servant employed by a knight or nobleman who would also have to fight alongside their lord on the battlefield. Lieutenant, okay, elephant in the room, however I pronounce it is going to be wrong for some people, but let me explain. Okay, first off, it's actually easier to explain the origin using the American style lieutenant. From the French lieu, as in lieu of, meaning instead of, and tenant, as in holding a position. So a lieutenant is an officer who holds a position in place of another higher ranking officer. You know, if the captain needs to go do something important over there, it's okay, the lieutenant can handle things while he's away. But why the different pronunciation of lieutenant? Well, the British style lieutenant appears to come from an old French variant of lieu, that being lief, It's also possible that the U at the end of U was at one time pronounced as a V or F sound. Why have the British stubbornly stuck with it? Because we're British, simple as. Now captain's easy, it comes from the Latin capitaneus, which itself comes from the word caput, meaning head. So the captain is the head guy. Major, surprise, surprise, also comes from Latin, meaning greater. Here's what's weird though, the modern rank of major seems to be a shortened version of sergeant major. But of course today, sergeant major is a non-commissioned rank, and major is an officer. Well, this seems to be a kind of artifact from the late medieval / Renaissance period where a sergeant major had more command authority, you know, the equivalent of a modern commissioned officer. Not that being a sergeant major isn't prestigious or important today. So at some point the sergeant was dropped from the old style sergeant major, but since then, for whatever reason, the full sergeant major was resurrected as a separate title for a senior NCO. Still with me? It's okay if you're not with me, let's move on to colonel, which probably originates around 1500 from the Spanish cabo de colonela, or the commander of a column of troops, which consisted of several companies, i.e. a regiment. Again, there's some confusion over pronunciation. Where's that R sound come from? Well, it seems like the French took the Spanish colonela and gallicized it to colonel, i.e. how colonel is actually spelled. But then, for some reason, the Spanish word changed to coronel. It's unclear, but this might have something to do with the word for crown, corona, and that a coronel was in service to the crown. Then, for whatever reason, the English adopted the French spelling alongside the Spanish pronunciation, coronel, becoming colonel. It's okay, we're nearly done. General. Pretty simple, really. A general officer is the guy in charge, in general, i.e. the general has general command of everything. Of course, over the years, there's been various prefixes like lieutenant general, who plays the role of a lieutenant just in general on a large scale, and major general, which is yet again confusing because while a major is senior to a lieutenant, a major general is junior to a lieutenant general. And this is because, and you're going to love this, major general is a shortening of sergeant major general. I just love how you can make up some goofy fake sounding rank, but if you go back far enough in history, it probably exists. Follow for more.
So how do I know if my liver's healthy? Is there any symptoms of an unhealthy or toxic liver?
Let's go through checklists. And the reason I call them checklists is because they may not apply to everybody. The first question to ask if your liver is healthy is, when you go without food, do you make a ketone? We've had people that are like 20 hours in, 36 hours in, 48 hours in. They're like, I'm still not making a ketone. If you can't make ketones, or you're starving, after a long period you're not feeling the benefits of fasting, that could be because of your liver. So we now have, okay, that's liver issue number one. Then we can go to things like, how do you process alcohol? Like, you know how there are certain people who, like, you go out to drink with them, and after a couple drinks they're dancing on the table, and then there's other people that like can drink the whole bar and they seem like they're completely normal compared to when they walked in. So that's liver function. Like, how quickly is that liver metabolizing that alcohol?
Which one is healthy, sorry?
I actually think metabolizing it quickly is better than the stagnant person.
I cannot unsee and unfathom what I just saw and what I just fathomed. This parallel is absolutely huge, and it will make a lot of sense what's going on the earth right now. Be back in 1 second.
Can somebody please tell me what the this is? I live in Mansell, Texas, and this is in the sky today. And now there's helicopters out circling the area. If anybody has any idea what this is.
When I saw the bend at the bottom of the staff, I knew exactly what we're looking at. It's going to blow your freaking mind. I kept thinking, where do I know that bend from? From a Sith. Who carries the Sith? Death. And in 1 second, I'm going to show you that what was in the sky has an aura and is real. And now in other mythology, Death, or Father Time, has the Sith and has the hourglass. Who else has a Sith at the very end? You'll see. So by screwing around and modifying the picture, we can literally see what looks like an aura, but the aura is not just on him. This is the telephone wire, and this is the mysterious figure. Energy. Energy. Look around them. The aura, the energy. This was literally something alive in the sky. But why right now? This parallel gets huge. Revelation 6 verse 7 is the fourth seal, and when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed him. So Death sat on the fourth horse, and hell followed with him. What's that mean? His name was Death, hell followed him, and power was given him over the fourth part of the earth, to unalive with the sword, and with hunger, with death, and with the beast of the earth. Don't we know that God talks to us through signs so we know what's happening? And this just happens to pop up when humanity is being plagued by all sorts of things. And in Revelation chapter 14, we see one like unto the Son of Man coming from the clouds having a sickle in his hand. And the angel said, thrust in your sickle, the earth is ripe to reap. Not only are we in a time where hell is unleashed upon the earth, we're also about to see the splitting of the wheat and the tares of the goat and the sheep. We are living within parallels upon parallels upon parallels. But this will be the last time.
Why does some of the symbols on the periodic table not match the name of the element? Like, why is Na sodium, or W tungsten, or K for potassium? Well, the answer is because they weren't named in English. Many of the elements on the periodic table were named in Latin or Greek or Arabic or German. They weren't named in English, and so the element name in that language isn't sodium. For example, sodium was named in Latin, and the Latin name for sodium is natrium, Natrium, Na. Potassium, kalium, iron, ferrum. These are all different languages. So that's why some of the element symbols don't match their name on the periodic table, is simply because they weren't named in English. By the way, did you know the only letters not on the periodic table are J and Q? And that's, again, because many of the elements are named in Latin, and there is no J in Latin, and so there is no J on the periodic table. There used to be Qs on the periodic table when elements were undiscovered, but since then we've discovered those elements and given them proper names, and so there's still no Q on the periodic table either. Anyways, I hope that helps. I hope that clears up some confusion about the periodic table for you. I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious, everybody. Bye.
Have y'all ever heard of the Moon-Eyed people? According to Cherokee lore, they live deep in the woods of present-day Appalachia. More specifically, North Carolina and Georgia. Blue-eyed and pale-skinned, they were so sensitive to light that they only emerged in the moonlight. So unlike the other beings that appear in indigenous legends, these were neither spirits nor monsters, but they were humans like the Cherokee themselves. As European settlers began to pour into North America in the 18th century, they began documenting the legend of the Moon-Eyed people. The Cherokee described this mysterious race of people as small, blue-eyed, or light-eyed with pale skin. And because of their sensitivity to light, they only emerged at night. In 1797, educator and American botanist Benjamin Smith Burton wrote, "The Cherokee tell us when they first arrived in the country in which they inhabit, they found it possessed by certain moon-eyed people who couldn't see in the daytime." In 1782, Cherokee chief Econostota also told the story about the moon-eyed people to Tennessee Governor John Sevier. Econostota repeated the stories told to him by his ancestors that white man had long ago crossed the Great Water and had landed first near the mouth of the Alabama River near Mobile. Burton recorded that the Cherokee said that they had expelled those wretches. Legend goes that the Cherokee took advantage of the intolerance that the moon-eyed people had to light and attacked them during a very powerful full moon. The legend of the moon-eyed people is said to run parallel to another legend about a Welsh prince and his brother who allegedly decided to flee from Wales in, I think, 1170 because of a civil war that was happening between their brothers. It's said that the brothers allegedly landed in North America, where they established a settlement. Legend even goes that one of the brothers even returned to his country and brought more people back over with him. The brothers disappeared from historical record, but they were kept alive through Welsh stories and songs. So were these Welsh princes maybe ancestors of the moon-eyed people? Econostota seemed to think so. He told Sevier that mysterious mounds in the area had been built by Welshmen. It's getting dark. I had to turn my flash on. Not only that, but some of these Welsh settlers were noticing some major similarities between what they were used to back in Wales and the indigenous cultures that they were experiencing here in the New World. They were seeing stone forts like their ancestors had built back in Wales. They noted that some of the indigenous people that they met had paler skin and blue eyes, and some of them even spoke a language that was really similar to their language. A local history museum in North Carolina claims to have a moon-eyed people artifact. The story goes that a 19th century farmer dug up a strange statue on his land that appears to depict two people either standing close together or conjoined with flat faces. Whether or not if the statue depicts moon-eyed people or if it was made by them is unknown. A number of strange sites still exist along the Appalachian foothills that people believe could very well be traces of the moon-eyed people. One of those sites being Fort Mountain in Georgia. There remains traces of a once mighty wall that was 900 foot long, 12 foot thick, and 7 foot high in some places. And the walls bear a striking resemblance to European battlements. Sevier told a friend that the wall had been built by the Welsh, and that they had constructed it as protection from the ancestors of the Cherokee who had eventually drove them from the region. If the story of the wall being built by the moon-eyed people, the Welsh, is true though, that would mean that the two princes from the 12th century may not have had anything to do with it. Some historians estimate that the wall predates their arrival by hundreds of years. The legend of the Moon-Eyed People leaves more questions than answers. Were the Cherokee stories about the blue-eyed, pale-skinned, only emerged at night people a myth? Were the Moon-Eyed People Welsh? Or were they something different entirely? I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts. Local lore states that in certain portions along the crumbling wall of Fort Mountain, you can still hear distant drum beats and catch glimpses of men in bearskins. Perhaps the Moon-Eyed People are still around. I don't know. Let me know what y'all think.
One of the things that poor people don't understand about increasing your quality of life as you get progressively richer is that hedonic adaptation will destroy most of your fantasies. And people who are in the middle class or upper middle class already kind of know this going into wealth, but people who come from nothing have never experienced luxury, so they maintain this fantasy that if they just could get luxury products or luxury experiences, they would be happy. Like when I was in college, I worked at a lot of restaurants, and you meet a lot of guys from tough economic backgrounds, guys who are dishwashers and busboys and whatnot. And we would talk shit about like, okay, if you got rich, what would you spend your money on? And so many of these guys would say, I would buy a car. I'd buy a Camaro or a Lamborghini, or I'd buy a watch. And the problem with that is hedonic adaptation. Like you can go and get that Lamborghini, but 2 weeks from now, driving that Lamborghini is going to feel like driving your Toyota. That is how our brains work. They get very used to things very fast. So spending your newfound money on luxury items is probably the worst way to increase your happiness or boost your quality of life. And the stuff that actually can do that is very uncool. It's stuff like paying for someone to do your laundry, like getting a laundry service, or paying to have a cleaner come once a week or once every 2 weeks to clean your apartment or your house. Paying to get takeout food delivered so that you don't have to waste time going to the grocery store and cooking your meals and this and that. All of those little unromantic things are actually what's going to make you feel like a king at the end of the day.
People come to my apartment and they're really confused about this right here. That is a shot glass with frozen water and a quarter in it, but it's actually a really good life hack. You basically freeze some water in a glass or bowl or whatever and place a quarter on top. It's to check if the contents of your freezer ever thaw and refreeze in the case of a power outage. If at any point that quarter falls within the water and refreezes, you know that at one point your freezer was warm enough for everything to thaw. Hence, the food is not safe to eat.
Let's do some emotional intelligence training together. Okay, so over here on the left-hand side, we have the more painful emotions from boredom down to despair. And then on the right-hand side, we have the more positive emotions from contentment up to bliss. Everybody wants to hang out on the right-hand side every second of their life for the rest of their life, but that's not realistic. We are going to feel emotional pain. And so step one with emotional intelligence training is to validate and allow and feel the negative emotions. As you validate and allow the negative emotions, you bring an acceptance which creates a dissolution and a dissipation of that emotion. Remember, emotion is energy in motion. If you're feeling pain right now, say for example you're feeling anxiety, validate your anxiety, allow your anxiety, accept your anxiety. You can say something like this: I'm feeling anxious right now. It's okay, it's okay. I validate my anxiety, I allow my anxiety, I bring acceptance to my anxiety. By doing that, you bring a higher frequency into the lower frequency and you create a dissipation. Okay, so that's step one. Step two is know that your emotional pain comes from judgment and resistance. If you are over here, from boredom down to despair, you are judging within your mind either yourself for your past actions, somebody else for their past actions, or the external world. You are wanting to change something within self, others, or the external world to feel better. So just know that. And third, release the attachment, release the judgment. Allow things to be as they are. This creates more of an acceptance and bringing you over here on the emotional scale. You can do that via turning the thought around into the opposite, such as, if you're judging yourself for past actions, I feel guilty about something I did in the past. Turn it into the opposite. I forgive myself for my past actions. I was doing the very best I could at that moment. Lastly, focus on bringing your energy back to yourself, back to your heart, back into the now, and aligned with the universe, as opposed to bringing your focus in a judgmental way towards self, others, external for the past. Align your focus to your heart, yourself, the now, and within the consciousness of the universe. As you do so, you will align with the right-hand side.
Did you know that dates basically have no impact on your blood sugar levels despite being absolutely crammed with sugar? It is the most fascinating thing ever. They're delicious, don't mess up your blood sugar, and will make you feel very full.
This is actually facts, Time School. Dates don't seem to negatively impact blood sugar levels even if you're type 2 diabetic. This randomized control trial took 79 patients with type 2 diabetes and allocated them 60 grams of date or raisins every day for 12 weeks. They found that dates had no significant impact on their HbA1c, fasting glucose, insulin resistance, beta cell function, or any cardiovascular marker, concluding that despite being very high in sugar, dates had no deleterious effects on glycemic control in diabetics. And there's more. This meta-analysis of 10 studies suggests that dates might even lower your fasting and postprandial plasma glucose levels. And this control study on 100 diabetics found that giving patients 3 dates a day for 16 weeks actually lowered their total and LDL cholesterol, possibly because of the high polyphenol content, whilst not causing any issues with their blood glucose levels. So why is this? Well, dates are packed with fiber. Just 100 grams contains around 7 grams of fiber. They also contain vitamins and minerals like potassium, vitamin B6 and magnesium, as well as antioxidants that not only make it safe for diabetics, but could even improve their cardiovascular health by improving their blood lipids. So if you have insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes and are wanting a sweet snack, having a couple of dates might be the healthy sweet treat you've been looking for. Class dismissed.
Want to know how to harvest seeds out of a carrot? First, you cut off the top where the greens were coming out of, and then you're looking to get to the core of the carrot. And did you actually think that's how you get seeds out of carrots? Let me show you how it actually works. Carrots are a biennial vegetable, which means instead of picking them when you should pick them at maturity, you would leave them in for their second season and they start to shoot up a flower. That flower starts to get fluffy and that fluffiness starts to fade away into crispiness. Once most of the fluff has faded, you can then crack open the crispy shells and that is what carries the carrot seed inside of it. So let's do that. I prefer to just have like a piece of paper or a plate and then rub these pieces in between my fingers. There's usually lots of little buggies that are inside of this. This was a baby spider, so he got moved out of the way. So if that weirds you out, maybe just wear some gloves. But I'm just packing this away into a seed packet, and this is one little cluster of those flowers, and each carrot produces like 10 to 15 clusters. And this carrot was a chaos carrot, so I have no idea what variety it is, so it's getting labeled as a mystery variety, and the chaos shall continue.
Is pooping every day really necessary? I ask as some of you sit on the toilet right now. I'm Avisha, a scientist who helps you use the latest research to unclog life's practical question. So how often do you poop? Once a day, twice a day, a couple times a week? Comment TMI down below. But it turns out there's a Goldilocks zone for poop frequency. Too frequent and the healthy microbes can't properly set up shop, leading to inflammation and increased susceptibility to nefarious bacterial invaders. But on the flip side, when the poop stays too long in your bowels, the bacteria run through all the available fiber and start chowing down on protein instead, which makes them poop out chemicals that can be toxic to your liver, kidneys, and nervous system. Seattle researchers analyzed the poop and pooping habits and blood of 1,400 participants, looking at their gut bacteria, blood chemistry, the whole shebang. They divided them up between constipated, pooping twice a week or less, low normal, 3 to 6 times per week, high normal, 1 to 3 times per day, and diarrhea, 4 or more times per day. As expected, the constipated and diarrhea groups had all sorts of problems, but it turns out that even the low normal group had significantly different bacterial populations, and some buildup of toxins like 3-indoxyl sulfate, which is linked to reduced kidney function. Also PCS, or p-cresol sulfate, which is also linked to cognitive decline and neuroinflammation. And these are both produced when bacteria switch over to processing protein instead of fiber. They also found some weaker links to anxiety and depression, both in the people themselves and in their family histories. But we're still very early on in the science of understanding all the cool connections between the gut and the brain. But in case this study has you worried, there are lots of great things you can do to improve your regularity. The biggest ones are the basic eating more fiber, drinking more water, and exercising. But let me know if you want more detailed nuanced tips in another video.
So you know eels? We have no idea where they come from. Like, literally, we do not know how they reproduce. They tracked all larvae and demonstrated that they all came from one particular place in the ocean called the Sargasso Sea. But this is where the mystery gets deeper, because while scientists think the eels are going off and reproducing and mating in the Sargasso Sea? No one can be quite sure, because they sent off one expedition where they scooped up as many eggs as they could find on the floor of the Sargasso Sea. They got 7,000 in total, and they took them back to the lab and looked at them to see how many of those were eels. You want to guess how many of that 7,000 were eel eggs? 0, exactly 0. So the scientists were like, okay, fine, we'll just track the adults instead. So they put GPS trackers on the eels, and every single time, these slippery little guys managed to shake them loose. They have tried everything you can imagine. They have given hormones to females to see if it will attract males in Sargasso Sea. Doesn't work. They have looked in the stomachs of predators to see if there are mature eels that have been chomped up and eaten in the Sargasso Sea. They've used microphones, they've used sonar, they've tried everything. But nobody has ever seen any mature eel, living or dead, in the Sargasso Sea until now.
Here are 3 types of things you want to avoid in a multivitamin supplement. Okay, number 1, make sure it doesn't have ascorbic acid in there, vitamin C. That means that it is going to be synthetically made. Number 2, make sure it doesn't have something called pyridoxine hydrochloride. This is the synthetic form of vitamin B6. And number 3, make sure it does not have cyanocobalamin, the synthetic form of vitamin B12. And this is unfortunately containing cyanide. So maybe something that we shouldn't be ingesting. Now, if you are going to take a multivitamin, make sure it's coming from whole food sources, things like fruits and vegetables, and also it doesn't have any fillers or flow agents. So make sure it doesn't have microcrystalline cellulose or that magnesium stearate, that flow agent, which is in most supplements. Follow for more natural health tips.
You can see that just one of the trees appears to be shaking.
Don't you think they all should be shaking?
The leaves look to be flapping in the breeze. However, Santos notes that no other tree is shaking except for this one particular one right in the middle.
Did you know there's a word you can call someone who acts as though they know a lot on a topic when in reality they know very little? A sciolist is a person whose knowledge is limited or superficial, but pretentiously makes out as though they know a lot more. Also known as a pretender of learning. It comes from Latin sciolus, meaning to possess only superficial knowledge. For example, in a sentence, the internet and social media is filled with health and fitness sciolists. So how would you use sciolist in a sentence?
Check this out. It seems like no hurricane has ever crossed the equator. But why? Well, that has to do with the fact that they are spinning. Let me explain. Tropical cyclones, also called hurricanes and typhoons, can cause enormous damage. They form over warm ocean water close to the equator. Because the Earth is basically a spinning ball, the air masses north and south of the equator get deflected. This makes them spin and form huge vortices, a consequence of what is called the Coriolis force. Along the equator, this force is weaker. As a result, there's a strip about 600 kilometers wide where tropical storms only rarely form. The Coriolis force causes tropical storms north of the equator to spin counterclockwise, while south of the equator they rotate in the opposite direction. So if a tropical storm were to cross the equator, it would probably lose its angular momentum, fizzle out, and become nothing but a mass of hot air.
Here are 3 signs of a person with high IQ. Number 1, they have a tendency to overthink. This is why as people generally get smarter, they actually become more socially awkward. They start to overanalyze every situation. Well, if I say this, then they might think that, and that would mean that they wouldn't like me because X, and so I should say this instead. This isn't just in social situations, by the way. But smarter people generally like to be in control, so they're less comfortable going based on impulses, and they like to try and come up with every possible outcome to a situation. The level 2 sign of a high IQ person is the ability to explain difficult concepts to different people based on their level of understanding. It's one thing to understand quantum physics. That takes a lot of intelligence as well. It's a whole nother level to be able to explain that in simpler terms to like a 5-year-old. Because you have to meet them where they're at and use their building blocks of understanding to construct more complicated concepts. And this takes a lot of intelligence to do. The number 3 sign of someone with high IQ is they generally know what they don't know. Smarter people tend to be better at identifying gaps in their own knowledge. This is why it's more common for smarter people to actually admit when they don't know something than it is for less smart people. Because less smart people tend to be worse at identifying those gaps and therefore assume that they aren't there. And the 4th sign of having high IQ is following me.